Gulf of Mexico oil spill could be the worst environmental catastrophe in U.S. history. Local and state officials have voiced desperation as their fears become far more tangible, with oil from the BP spill showing up on shore as oil sheens, tar balls, and gooey slicks. In Washington, the Environmental Protection Agency said it had told the oil company to immediately select a less toxic dispersant than the one it is now using to break up crude oil gushing from a blown-out well in the Gulf of Mexico. Once the agency is signed off on a different product, it said, the company would then have 72 hours to start using it. In other words, the oil dispersants they are using are very toxic. In a letter to BP's chief executive, Tony Hayward, the agency's administrator, Lisa Jackson, and the Homeland Security Secretary have warned the company that it had fallen far short in keeping the public informed. It demanded that BP release and post all data related to the month-old spill. In other words, BP has been lying, or at least not telling the whole truth. The oil spill is much worse than previously estimated and could be releasing or gushing out some 4 billion gallons of oil every single day, or approximately 40,000 barrels to 100,000 barrels or more per day. In Grand Isle, the focus was on the grim spectacle of what one official referred to as creeping brownie mix at a news conference attended by visibly furious officials who had just taken a helicopter tour of the coast. Governor Bobby Jindal said he was particularly worried that the heavy patches of oil appeared to have moved to shore under the surface of the Gulf. This oil has traveled 110 miles to land on our coast, and we're concerned that this is just the beginning. The governor said, "You didn't see oil that close to our coast just a day or two ago." In other words, this is turning into a massive rolling disaster. The governor said officials from the Coast Guard and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration continue to tell him that heavy oil is not traveling underwater before it shows up on the coast, which he said would not explain its presence. According to NOAA's conservative estimates, Mr. Jindal said, the spill has already affected at least 50 miles of Louisiana's coastline, which is full of breaks and inlets into fragile marshlands that are far more difficult to protect than sandy beaches. No shoreline has been fully cleaned, he said. On Elmer's Island, one of the few sandy beaches in Louisiana that is accessible by road, a thick brown frosting of oil was smeared on the shore. Near the mouth of the Mississippi, reddish-brown emulsified oil was pooled 3 inches deep in some places, and it killed off cane for at least a mile along the shore. The thick, black oil appeared to have been washed out by the tide, but the air was heavy with the scent of petroleum. Several officials at the news conference in Grand Isle called on President Obama to order the federal government to take over where BP has failed. And yes, BP has failed miserably. We need some action, and we need it now. In directing BP to select a less toxic dispersant, the EPA said it was exercising caution because so little is known about the chemical's potential toxic impact. In other words, making the oil spill worse by spraying toxic dispersant on it. BP has sprayed nearly 700,000 gallons of oil dispersants on the surface of the Gulf and directly onto the leaking wellhead a mile underwater. It is by far the largest use of chemicals to break up an oil spill in United States waters or in history. Scientists and politicians have questioned why the EPA is allowing use of the dispersant products when less toxic alternatives are available. Again, it has something to do with money. On Monday, Representative Edward J. Markey, Democrat of Massachusetts, sent a letter to Ms. Jackson at the EPA demanding details of the formula of the oil dispersant and about any testing that had been carried out on the chemicals. In a statement on Thursday, the EPA said, because of its use in unprecedented volumes and because much is unknown about the underwater use of dispersants, EPA wants to ensure that BP is using the least toxic product authorized for use. Why didn't they think of this before? In some kind of way. BP said it was reviewing its options and did not detail which or how many dispersants it might propose for use. But U.S. Polychemical of Spring Valley, New York, which makes a dispersant called Dispersit SPC 1000, said that it had received an order from BP and would increase its production to some 20,000 gallons a day in the next few days, and eventually to as much as 60,000 gallons a day. Dispersants are conventionally applied to move oil off the surface of the ocean to protect marine life and to prevent large amounts of oil from moving onshore. If the oil is emerging from a leak 50 miles offshore and a mile underwater, oil in such a location emulsifies and separates as it comes to the surface. So, oil dispersant use isn't really effective. But they are in a desperate situation, BP, where they have to try everything possible, hoping something will work. With reports of oil moving into areas as far west as Timberlire Bay, Louisiana, the patience of state and local officials had worn very thin. It seems like BP doesn't even care, said the police chief of Grand Isle, a scenic coastal community popular with tourists in the summer. Chief said that he had met with BP officials daily and had reported to them that oil was coming closer and closer to shore, but that he had seen no concrete action. Nobody went and cleaned nothing, he said, and now it's all over our beaches. And yes, this is a huge, massive environmental catastrophe, the biggest one in the history of the United States, and is still growing, getting bigger day by day. And again, Ezekiel chapter 13, verse 19. And will you pollute me among my people for handfuls of barley and for pieces of bread, to slay the souls that should not die, and to save the souls alive that should not live, by your lying to my people that hear your lies? 20. Wherefore, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against your pillows, wherewith you there hunt the souls to make them fly. And I will tear them from your arms, and will let the souls go, even the souls that you hunt, to make them fly. 21. Your kerchiefs also will I tear, and deliver my people out of your hand, and there shall be no more in your hand to be hunted, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. 22. Because with lies you have made the heart of the righteous sad, whom I have not made sad, and strengthened the hands of the wicked, but he should not return from his wicked way by promising him life. 23. Therefore you shall see no more vanity, or divine divinations. I will deliver my people out of your hand, and you shall know that I am the Lord God Almighty. And yes, all these things are more signs.